I am here to give a short introduction about the martial law to the people power in the year 1972 to 1986. Philippines was praised worldwide in 1986 when the so-called bloodless revolution erupted called the Esther Revolution. This event has been engraved in the hearts and minds of every Filipinos. This part of the Philippine history gives us a strong sense of pride, especially that the other nation had attempted to emulate what we have, shown in the world of the true power of democracy. And now, here were some news about what happened during the time of martial law until the people power.
Good morning, everyone. For today, we're going to discuss the person behind the martial law, which is Ferdinand Emmanuel Adrian Marcos Sr. He is born on September 11, 1917, at Sarot, Ilocos Norte. Her mother is Josefa Adrian, and her father is Mariano Marcos. Later on, he baptized in the Philippines Independent Church, but was first baptized in the Roman Catholic Church at the age of 3. Ferdinand Emmanuel Adrian Marcos Sr. was a Filipino politician and citizen who was the 10th president of the Philippines in 1965 to 1968. He ruled as a director under the martial law. He married Imelda Marcos at the year of 1954. They have 4 children. Her alma mater was the University of the Philippines. Her profession was a lawyer, jurist, and a politician. At the date of September 28, 1989, at the age of 72, Ferdinand Marcos died at Honolulu, Hawaii, USA. And I'm Justin Villanueva reporting.
Ferdinand E. Marcos Presidency. President Ferdinand E. Marcos, who was on his second and last term, was able to extend his stay in office to a 3rd term. He was able to do this through the 1935 Constitution, which provided for martial rule as long as conditions justifying its declaration existed. Such conditions were invasions, insurrection, or rebellion or imminent danger. Therefore, the public safety requires it. President called it constitutional authoritarianism, extended his presidency that lasted 20 years or 2 decades, the longest history in Philippine history. His administration is very strict under it. The term of office of all office officials, starting with the President, Congress was padlocked, media was shut down, and Marcos critics and rivals were arrested and detained. Marcos promised of a new society that would solve insurgency, criminality, and poverty, help to quiet down dissent from the majority of population. The repressive measures of martial law, however, forced the activists, leftists, as well as the rightists to go underground, where they continued organizing for resistance against it.
Assassination of Ninoy. If Marcos did not declare martial law in 1972, former Senator Benito Ninoy Aquino Jr. may not have become the next president. He was imprisoned and later got to US for medical treatment when he got ill while in detention. Marcos is taken with locus, was very sick, and the lack of vice president to succeed him posed a big problem in leadership. On August 21, 1983, Ninoy Aquino decided to return on Philippines using an assumed name Marshal Bonifacio. He believed that he could be more useful to the position of the Philippines than in the US. Increased repression will only hasten the community victory. He wrote to his cousin Saint Eva Estrada Calao, who was also a strong Marcos critic and oppositionist. We must therefore exert every effort to convince Marcos that a genuine return to democracy is the only sure path of the enveloping red tide, he concluded. What happened to Ninoy Aquino upon his arrival shocked the whole nation and the rest of the countries that were closely mentoring the event in the Philippines. Ninoy was gunned down and fell on the airport tarmac. The double murder at the Manila International Airport was later tried by supposedly independent Agrava Commission. Ninoy Aquino funeral procession took 11 hours from Quezon City to the Memorial Park in Parañaque. 100,000 joined procession which observed described as more as protest march than a funeral procession. In the following months, rallies and mass action were held faithfully challenging Marcos to step down. Demonstrations bravely fought the police who were armed with the water cannons, tear gas, and other crowd dispersal weapons. For the first time, the anti-Marcos movement was characterized across socio-economic classes dominated with moderates. Before 1983, the protest movement was dominated by the left or left-leaning sector, mostly from the basic sector of society, like workers. Peasant, urban, poor, and the lower middle class. With this development, the stage for Marcos' exit has been set.
Aquino's funeral procession was held from Quezon City to the Memorial Park in Parañaque. Hundreds of thousands attended the procession, which observed described as more of the protest march than a funeral procession. In the following months, rallies and mass action were held recently, challenging Marcos to step down. Demonstrators grimly faced the police, who were armed with water cannon, tear gas, and other road dispersal weapons.
If Marcos did not declare martial law in 1972, former Senator Ninoy Aquino Jr. might have become the next president. Instead, he was imprisoned and later allowed to go to the USA for medical treatment. When he got very well in detention, Ninoy was gunned down and fell on the airport tarmac. Assassin alleged along gunman by the communities also later after gunned down by soldiers belonging airport security group.
The snap election. From 1963, a new wave of protest rallies called the Paraliamento Streets rocked Manila and other cities like Cebu, Davao, and Iloilo. Although Marcos' term was not yet ended in June 1987, the protesters asked him to resign and hold an early election, as it was rumored he had just undergone a kidney transplant. The U.S., with its interest in the Philippines, especially in its military facilities, was also distributed, and with the accused assassin getting out of prison, the U.S. began pressuring Marcos for an early election day. Marcos announced that he was ready for a snap presidential election on February 7, 1986. His action surprised his enemies. Corazon Aquino, widowed of Ninoy Aquino, was the opposition candidate for president with Salvador H. Laurel as her vice president. To ensure the clean and fair counting of votes, concerned businessmen and other cost-oriented groups organized the National Movement for Free Election, NAMFREL. People fiercely and bravely protect their ballots. Initial counts by COMELEC showed Marcos leading by 1.2 million votes, which was contrary to the overall NAMFREL tally that gave Cory Andoy a consistent lead. Finally, on the second day after the election, 38 computer programmers of the COMELEC walked out in the shown in the tally board. This caused rallies in Makati. On February 20, 1986, Marcos was declared president-elect along with Arturo Tolentino as vice president. On the same day, Cory, in a People Victory rally at Rizal Park, called for a civil disobedience. According to Numbers tally, Aquino's final vote numbered 7,835,070 over Marcos' 7,053,068. Aquino's supporters, Boy Scout, crony banks, newspaper, beers, and other businesses affiliated with Marcos's
Worsening economic and political crisis. The initial effects of martial law on peace and order and the lowering of prices for basic goods kept the general public hopeful and cooperative. For the common people, the promise of economic prosperity and the expense of the political freedom was better than the chaos and uncertainty of the 1970s. The policy of devaluating the peso by IMF-WB resulted in huge foreign debts which forced the government to raise and collect and more taxes that were largely used to pay off these debts. It was also during the martial law period that the poor farmers began to deprive their leasehold arrangement to give way to the forest, mining and marine reserves in leasehold arrangement by the rich, as well as a foreign cooperation to prevent further deterioration. The government sent out 1.3 million overseas contract workers and domestic helpers. By 1980s, talks to Marcos Hillenwell and those of his associates in the tobacco, sugar and coconut industries has spread. Unemployment ballooned from 6.3% in 1972 to 12.6% in 1895. The smiling Marcos and his beloved martial law has sent it. The appointment of the First Lady Imelda Marcos as a governor of Metro Manila and concurrently head of the Ministry of Human Settlements and Ecology gave rise in the conjugal dictatorship. By holding both positions, Ms. Marcos had access to funds and resources of the government and even ambassadorial to represent the Philippines in sensitive diplomatic talks. In 1978, 6 years beyond his last term, in 1972, 13 years in power since in 1965, Marcos called for the election of the interim Batasang Pambansa. It was first election held under martial rule. The opposition party Laban ng Bayan versus Marcos KBL, Ilusang Bagong Lipunan, competed for victory. While Ninoy Aquino campaigned behind his fellow party makers, divided by a parallel Boy Scout campaign as a result of the lost KBL. Marcos' power to issue presidential decrees remains. Moreover, amendments once again to the 1973 Constitution were proposed and ratified in the same year. Once amendment excluded those charged with high crimes from running for president, thus excluding Benigno Ninoy Aquino with drug charges of murder, illegal possession of firearms, and subversion. Another amendment guaranteed immunity from suit from Marcos in his cabinet officials after had finished his term. By then, it was clearly why all amendments were adopted. Marcos announced the holding of presidential election of June 16, 1981.